Hey there, everybody. Okay, so I'm doing a few more tests on the Akaso cameras. Unfortunately, I cannot get them to do 1280 by 1080. I can't get them to do full HD. All I can get them to do is 1280 by 720. Now, I have two Akasos hooked up. One of them is overlooking the left side of my workbench. And there it is. While you're looking at that horrific mess, I'm going to readjust these new camera clamps that I have and try to explain the workflow of what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do here. So on the left side of my workbench is where I do all my hardware stuff, obviously. I do all my soldering and all my tinkering. It's where I do the tool side of things. And then working over towards more of the right side of the desk, I could just take this Akaso, this action cam, and as you can see now we have an over-under. So you can see my oscilloscope there, and now we're just above it. So right now we have an over-under deal, but whenever I get to reflashing things or firmware level, like this is where we're doing I2C, SPI, serial, bus pirate kind of stuff, I got my bin of, logic analyzer tools in there, and I do all that stuff sort of right here. And this guy right here is the hub I'm using for all my cameras, and when I plugged in my USB sound card, it picked up a terrible amount of noise. And now that the USB sound card's plugged directly into my computer, I'm getting a bit of lag, but we'll hopefully address that later. But as you can see across my desk, this is usually where I do all my firmware stuff. And usually where I have my Shuttle Pro here, I might have a microcontroller, an Arduino, or a Raspberry Pi or something. And off towards the right over here, I have all my thin client stuff up there, and my ham radio stuff over here. So we're going to lock this clamp so I don't flop around too much, but we can take this guy and just bring him right over back to the middle of the desk where we started out with, and we can get a really good view of what's going on in ham radio land and what's going on in thin client land, especially if we take this sort of preview, because over here is where I would normally have my thin client. You can see what I'm doing on the screen, plus my thin clients are typically VGA, and I have this VGA to S-video and composite down converter. Now, I know it's not the best signal, so we're not going to be doing anything in HD, of course, but 640 by 480 is perfectly fine to install DOS or Windows 98 or 98 or something legacy. And I also have this USB S-video and composite capture box. So essentially the best we can capture is 800 by 600 at most. But I also have an HDMI capture box that records straight to hard drive. So there will be no way to do this live, but at least all of the thin clients that I have up there that are HDMI or DVI compatible, we can still at least capture that with a higher resolution and mix it in later. But unfortunately, the Akasos are kind of stuck on 1280 by 720, so technically it's not full 1080p at 720. But as you see, now I have the different cameras that I can position around, and I'm still trying to figure out what goes where, and I'm trying to figure out how OBS we can easily just transition through mess of a work desk to mess that is my face. So hopefully none of the audio in this is out of lag, and I got to get my USB microscope working. And again, if I was going to work with the USB microscope, it would be in this general area right here. You can actually see where I have my USB microscope plate. And let's just bring the camera down for a quick flyby tour. You can kind of get an idea of how things are done in the lab. So we have the left side of the lab. This is where we do our hardware, take shit apart, solder stuff together, get your headers in place, figure out what kind of interfaces you need. Then over here we have logic analysis, bus interfaces, power supply, logic analyzer, oscilloscope, JTAG. This is where now we don't need the soldering iron as much. This is where we're going to we're going to start working on the data side of things, which is why I keep this area relatively cluttered with, all various SD cards, jumper headers, all that kind of stuff. Here's the main PC, and we're sliding around towards the ham radio stuff. We've got the floating panel. PC down there, you can see blinking away. I still have a 45-degree angle because I'm still running USB cables and whatnot. And then going up, we just have the thin clients. That's my lab, folks, and I'm just trying to figure out what the best camera positions are. I mean, I really wish I could just put a camera right here, but it is directly in my face. Alright, so until we figure out what cameras go where and how to frame up everything and do all that fun video producer bullshit, let's see how well this turns out.